today's edition of Live from Cleveland, we talk to 4 musicians affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. First, we'll talk to Kyle KIdd, one of the 8 members of Future's gospel group Mourning a Black Star, about their upcoming album being released on Don Giovanni Records May 15th, and the challenges behind releasing new music in the midst of this national health crisis. Their song So Young So from The Cycle leads us into our show today. Then we travel to Philly, where Cleveland transplant Max Stern of Signals Midwest is readying his first solo effort to be released, despite many people within the music industry being temporarily laid off, concerts postponed and canceled. From his Harlem apartment, composer and organist Buck McDaniel speaks with us about facing some economic uncertainty as a professional full-time musician during shelter-in-place, where he physically cannot access his main instrument. And then finally, Joe Boyer, aka Joey Sprinkles, completely changed his approach to releasing new music, deciding to make new albums spelled in velvet available immediately for those looking for some solace. From the self-recorded solo artists to classically trained musicians performing for historic congregations, many people are dealing with the same challenges despite their career trajectory or geography. We're all looking for ways to feel more connected than ever before, which is one of the main reasons that we're bringing you a brand new episode of Live from Cleveland this week. Stay tuned. I'm giving air quotes here because this show has been pre-recorded from my desk, but this is Live from Cleveland, and I'm Rachel H., presenting another non-traditional episode of our program. We'll be with you for the next hour.
The Cycle is the name of the album, and I am extremely excited for the world to experience what we have put together. So we recorded it live. Everything is a one take. And we had a friend, Janata, come up from Columbus and mix it for us, and Adam Boost from Cauliflower Audio mastered it for us. And it's a totally like all friends and family in-house situation, and we are excited to put it out. And this will be our first time recording something live. So literally just being in our studio space and in a big room, and the sound of all of the music is that big room sound. I'm excited for people to, listen and take part in it and take from it what they will.
Well, I'm extremely happy to talk to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me, because as I saw your single released on Spotify at the end of the last month, it really dawned on me how difficult it must be to make some of these decisions right now, along with your record label, to keep things on schedule during this time. How has that been for you?
Just the communication, everything has been still very smooth. Everybody at Don Giovanni has been so amazing of just like checking in and making sure that we're safe and doing well first and foremost. And I'm sure they're doing it with all of their artists, because for them and for all of us, that's most important. There was conversation about, what the best preparation for releasing would be, like, should we do it now or should we look to push it back? And at first we were trying to think if it would be best to push it back, only because, so much is going on right now. I mean, people are all over the place of trying to really figure out like what's going on with their lives. Like, are they really thinking about music and, new releases and stuff like that? And so I know I personally started to look at trends, and music has been helping me get through my process of just being isolated and at home. So once we went back to the drawing board, we kind of decided that it would probably be best to just keep it the same. Everybody who's independent artists right now, I think, are trying to support one another. I know Mourning a Black Star as a whole, and Mourning a Black Star as a whole collectively, and each of us individually are trying to support our artist friends as they're having releases come out and just helping them cross promote and things like that. So I think we decided to stay with our original plan because I feel like it serves the community in a positive way of having that music available while we're being isolated and practicing social distancing. Music and, is really helping us through, I think, for a lot of us who are artists and who are not artists or don't consider ourselves as artists. I mean, I see everybody as artist, depending on what you're doing. I think it's really beneficial in helping our community. So we've decided, along with Don Giovanni, to keep it the same schedule.
What other changes has the band made, as well as you personally encountered due to the pandemic? Like limitations on travel, as well as shelter in place.
So with having South by Southwest canceled, and then we were supposed to do a leg of a tour of the Oshun tour with them, and then to go straight into U.S. Girls, and it has just come crashing down into a halt. It finances aren't there, so it's about now trying to plan and say all right, well, we have a little bit of extra time to really be strategic about how we want to go about this, so when the opportunity does come back for those shows that are being postponed to be rescheduled, we can make sure that we're prepared. But also we're in a place of not knowing when that's going to happen. And then all of the things that we wanted to do to originally raise money, fundraise here at home, are not available to us because of us practicing social distancing. So, having this release come out is going to hopefully be a way to just keep the word out there about our new album coming and get people excited about all the things that we will be able to do once all this blows over, hopefully very soon. So it's been difficult, but at the same time, I think we already plan to do kind of a retreat where we're just going to be the band figuring out what our next step looks like. And we kind of do that on a regular basis, sit down and say, hey, where are we individually and collectively, and where we are right now, how does that look for us planning forward? And I think everybody's just going to be putting their head in of how we can do this to feed back into wanting to make this successful as we continue to go forward. But yeah, everybody's kind of feeling the hurt around wanting to just that itching to be back on stage and to be back in the car. And I was joking with someone yesterday about 8 people being in a van traveling cross country, and how you're oh my God, I can't wait to get out of this van, or you don't really have any privacy to yourself while you're on tour, and now all of us are itching to be back in the van and back together because of the isolation of not being able to be around people. We're all we're fine being piled up in a van. We'll never take it for granted again. I'm sure we all feel that.
I hope that you get back in that van as quickly as you possibly can. What are some things that we can do as consumers to help out artists right now who are having a hard time, that want to get back on their feet and kind of support this new music? What are the best options that we have?
I think first and foremost, directly reach out to that artist, whether it is via Instagram, Facebook, whatever platform that they are utilizing, or all of them, and ask them how you can best support them, because for each individual artist, it's going to be different, depending on where they are within their career and in their process of releasing music or starting to get their music together to be released. But if you have access to their website, or if they have a Patreon, getting involved in that and following them on Spotify, following them on Apple Music, following them on Tidal, all of the platforms that people have the ability to subscribe to. But number one is their Patreon, or if you see an artist have a GoFundMe or something like that, just checking in to see what their needs are, because all of our needs are going to vary depending on the foundational support. And when I say foundational support, if you're independent and you're doing everything yourself, or if an artist has a team and a manager, it's going to vary. Just, there's always this thing, you talk about fan mail back in the day. Well, fan mail is now a thing again. Sending those messages of just checking in with those artists, because I think art is going to pull us through this and help us in the long run to be able to sustain ourselves, as it always has. If you feel led to do some art, submit it to me via email, and me and my team are going to work to put out a compilation of just what we're doing to survive. And I'm entitling it a moment of collective liberation. because I think that is what's important right now, is how can we liberate ourselves collectively so that individually we are feeling taken care of and we're feeling uplifted to continue to keep going. I'm saying this because I've asked all of Mourning a Black Star members to submit something if they feel led to, just to show like what community can mean and how it can look for us, because that's all we have to depend on. And yes, we are limited in the way that we can access our community, but how can we maximize the tools that we do have available to support one another? Because this is a really hard time, and like, you know, like they're saying, it's a moment in history that we kind of really weren't really prepared for. And so, like you said, it's shaking the foundation of a lot of industries, specifically music. And so it's a hard time, but I think we're gonna be well. I know we're gonna do well and see our way through this. And on the other side of it is gonna be some amazing, groundbreaking moment in history art and music and books coming out of this. So I'm excited for what's to come.
That was Kyle KIdd from the group Mourning a Black Star. You can grab their new album, The Cycle, May 15th on Don Giovanni Records. After this song, we'll be back with Max Stern, member of Signals Midwest. Right now, we're listening to his song, Water Tower. Check it out.
Met on that concrete and left a bitter bruise, and I drove back wounded, filled with wanting to simmer sweetly under an April moon. Though I'm thankful for everything I've been given, it's only human to want a better deal, yeah. But all that gets you is an awful little screen in a bedroom, just peering in on other people's highlight reels. Oh, and when I turn it off in the morning, every silence is a song. And if we weren't built for this, I'd rather have you as something I get to miss. And hiding out in the frequency of every creak and floorboard, a rented room can't hold 1,000 latent songs, shaped like wishes, labeled prayers, floated out into the air, and then they're gone. Yeah, then they're gone. So tell me, when did this become something you do and not just something you've done? I wanna know where that line's drawn between going, being gone. Oh, and when I turn it off in the morning, every silence is a song. And if we weren't built for this, I'd rather have you as something I get to miss.
I play in a band called Signals Midwest, and I've been doing that for probably 12 years. We started in 2008 on Grandview in Cleveland Heights in a basement there. And we put out a bunch of records and toured a lot. And over the last, 4 or 5 years, I've kind of been writing songs on the side of that are more influenced by like Great American Songbook stuff and, songwriters like Tom Petty and Neil Young and Jason Molina. So I made a record of all of those songs, and it's not announced yet, but it was about to be, and then COVID happened and just kind of derailed everything. So I released a single and didn't announce the record, and my label that's based in LA and I are just sort of kind of half scheming, half panicking about, what to do with this project that we've both invested a lot of time and energy and money and love into. And when touring isn't really a viable option anymore. Yeah, it's been a challenge so far. The single has a video that goes along with the song that is of me skateboarding, and we filmed it on what we didn't know was going to be like the last day that everyone was allowed outside. Like I was skating through a park in New York City, Prospect Park in Brooklyn. And then like the next day I went back to work and they were like, okay, no one's allowed outside anymore. Go home. So it was like literally the last day you could do anything.
So Max, I know that you moved to Philly a couple of years ago. What were you doing in Brooklyn? Did you move there, or were you just visiting?
Signals had played a show in Brooklyn, so I was up there already. I was hanging out with a friend. We had an idea to shoot some footage of me skating around, and then we captured all that footage, just like this beautiful, like, early spring, 65-degree day, just cruising around, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, no, can't do that anymore.
Do you have a prospective date for this new album to come out, or are you still kind of waiting to see what happens with that as well?
It hasn't been announced anywhere else, and we're trying to keep it pretty quiet for the time being, but it's going to be called Impossible Sum, and our tentative date is June 19th on Lauren Records, Lauren, out of Los Angeles, California. They did the last Signals record. They've been great. So we're hoping for June 19th, but with the way that everything's going, we might push it back a month or two. We're probably just going to be releasing more singles in the meantime and trying to do some more like interactive streaming stuff and, gonna try to keep doing cool stuff and hope people tune in.
Obviously, there are a lot of challenges you're facing right now.
A few, yeah.
I wanted to ask, with putting this album out in the near future in your mind, what were some of the compromises or things that you and your label have been trying to make to have this work, as people in a lot of the positions that you normally rely on for publicity and support have tapered off?
Well, one of the most, I think, effective things that we've seen is the new proliferation of the live stream, whether it's artists playing live through Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, or just kind of doing Q&As or, any kind of like broadcasting through the internet, I think has been a tool that a lot of people have really seized and done cool stuff with. Jeff Rosenstock out in LA he organized a digital house show and distributed all of the money that was donated through a pinned PayPal link at the bottom of his Instagram story. He just split all the donation money up between other people who he featured on his channel, and it allowed them, pay their rent for, a month or two or something like that. And I thought that was really cool. So seeing how people have harnessed live streaming has been a really fun and I think powerful tool in this trying time, because you can essentially play a show from your bedroom. And the few I've done have been super helpful too. Signals Midwest was supposed to go to the UK in the second half of April. Obviously, we've canceled that tour and are out $3,000 or $4,000 worth of flights and rental fees. And then my van got stolen, which was an entirely different story. But it's hard times for a lot of people. Yeah, I think in terms of a label perspective and like a press perspective, it's especially hard because it's just hard to motivate people to want to do anything, like who wants to write about a new band when there's a global pandemic? It's just, I think in a lot of ways we need music even more now than we have in a long time, because it provides us an escape and it provides us beauty while we're all stuck in our bedrooms. I think it's an issue of motivation for a lot of people right now, and it's scary. And I feel that for booking agents too, and and tour managers and people who sell merch and people who are, you know, guitar techs or drum techs out on the road, people who are professional drivers. You know, it is, I think the effects are, you know, only just beginning to be felt, because I don't think it's just a temporary pause. I think this is just going to change the way that all of us do this for the next year or two.
Again, that was Maxwell Stern. You can check out his new single Water Tower, as well as the accompanying music video released by Lauren Records on youtube.com. When we come back, we're going to be listening to Landscape Piece right now by Buck McDaniel and Jacob Kirkwood. I'm streaming this from Bandcamp, where you can buy or listen to this piece. But I'm talking to an artist who just recently moved to New York City on a new job prospect and has suddenly found himself not being able to connect with the instrument that he originally moved there in order to play. More when we come back on Live from Cleveland. Again, that was Landscape Piece by Buck McDaniel and Jacob Kirkwood, produced by Jacob Kirkwood, composed by Buck McDaniel and Jacob Kirkwood. That was Hannah Landrum on violins, Devin Hinzo on oboes, Buck McDaniel on pianos, and Jacob Kirkwood on programming, percussion, and synths. You can listen to this piece at Buck McDaniel, jacobkirkwood.bandcamp.com. We will post links to this piece as well as all of the music that you have heard on Live from Cleveland tonight on our Facebook page, Live from Cleveland. Please subscribe, become a fan. We're going to be posting a lot of different resources on that page that you may access at any point. The next person I'm talking to is Buck McDaniel,
I moved to New York
composer of that
to
piece.
serve as organist
Buck
and
moved
choirmaster
to New York City in late
to
January of
St.
this
Mark's
year.
Church
He explains to me
in Mount
what
Kisco,
brought
New
him
York,
to the
which
city.
is in Westchester County, which is a very sort of near suburb of the city. And the organ there is sort of this great historic instrument that's sort of the top of one of the best instruments in the United States, and is the little sister to some of the great organs at Washington National Cathedral in D.C., and here in New York, it's in Thomas Church of Avenue and St. John the Divine. And there's been a long tradition of good music there, initially with my most famous predecessor, Dr. Edgar Hillier, who was a student of Maurice Duruflé and Marcel Dupré in Paris. And the organ is by the Alien Skinner firm, and it was designed by G. Don Harrison. And so you could say it's related to a lot of the great organs in Paris, like the organ Notre Dame and Centerpiece. And here in New York, it's great because I'm living in Harlem. And New York is really great because there's a lot of Mississippians here, a lot of Mississippian transplants, and there's a lot of sort of Southern culture very much alive in the city, particularly in this neighborhood. And so it's a very easy transition. I feel really happy here, and I'm doing a lot of the same things I did in Cleveland, which is play concerts and smoke cigarettes.
So, for you, Buck, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing right now? Obviously, being in New York City is a whole kind of beast unto itself, and there's a lot of other issues going on there as well.
So,
more cases
like I said,
and more
I'm
people
an organist,
that have been affected by
in
the
addition to I'm a
coronavirus.
composer.
What are
so
the obstacles
obviously
that
all
you're facing
concerts
at
are
the moment?
canceled, and so every concert that I was going to be a part of even through June has been canceled. And so my entire spring season is over. But uniquely, as an organist, what's really difficult is I don't have access to my instrument, unlike if I played the violin or the guitar, because those are instruments you can carry around with you and you can have them at home. But whereas my instrument is part of a building that I am now denied access to, it's been really difficult and slightly unique, not being able to not just sort of create, but you form an emotional relationship with your instrument and the building, and to not have access to it has been added to the weirdness of the situation.
So you moved to New York City for this job. Has the actual job and your financial situation been impacted by this? I think that would be one of my largest concerns.
So for me,
moving
I
to a place where
live a dual life.
Rent
as
is like significantly
higher
than it is in
and
Cleveland.
As a freelance composer and performer, and every single event has been canceled, which it's not unique to me, but every single concert is canceled through June, so I have no additional means of making money. One unique thing that I've done at St. Mark's is I've insisted, sort of militantly, that we pay. I have a staff of about 7 musicians, and so we're paying everyone full salary as agreed upon the original contract. And many of these musicians have confided in me and told me that this is their only source of income during this. Namely, my brass players are from Radio City Music Hall, and this will be the only check they get this spring. And so I'm very proud of this, but it is a unique situation that we're able financially to pay our musicians.
What other ways have you been adapting right now to kind of get through the next couple of weeks or months?
It's been sort of really difficult to create, and especially it's been very frustrating when every performance has been canceled. Especially a lot of those were sort of not only artistically fulfilling, but sort of quasi-financially dependent on. And so that's been really frustrating. And so just in the past few days, I've been able to I've sort of forced myself to create. And so I'm sort of doing a combination of writing these sort of miniature pieces for friends that they can, not necessarily for the purpose of playing at home, but they can play at home. They don't necessarily require electronics or anything but themselves. And so I've been writing a lot of pieces for sort of solo violin or solo horn and sort of studies for myself compositionally. And in addition to that, I've been sort of immersing myself in a lot of late 19th century and early 20th century French repertoire, both for the organ and for other instruments. And I've taken on the study of French with a teacher, and so trying to sort of immerse myself in that and use this time for study and sort of artistic reflection.
So you and some other friends had been toting this new release kind of pretty heavily on March 20th, and that's how it came into my periphery. And so I reached out to you to ask, what was the impetus of making new music during this time. Can you talk a little bit about why you released this track in the midst of the pandemic?
I'll explain the way that Jacob Kirkwood and I collaborate is actually very inducive to the time that we're in. So thankfully, we recorded in very analog means. And so I write for essentially acoustic instruments that just sort of do themselves. And whereas Jacob, his entire sort of medium is studio and electronics and programming and that type of thing. Thankfully, the piece, we've sort of been cultivating it for over a year now. And so a year ago, last spring, we recorded sort of all the parts that I wrote. And so I'll sort of create a grid for acoustic instruments, and then Jacob will sort of superimpose an electronic environment on top of that. With this piece, it is uniquely a studio creation. It is you can do it live, but it's kind of not the same thing. and it's really immersive, and sort of the recorded medium is sort of the only way to realize it. And so I think that with a lot of popular music or commercial music, sort of the way that you consume it is sort of very short, and you can kind of put it on in the car, or you can just have it on while you're cooking, and you can choose sort of your level of engagement with it. And with the work we make, I think that now it was a good time to release it, in that people have the time to sort of listen to it in a way that we don't really, our lives don't really line up in a way that we can engage with recorded music in the same way before. And then also Bandcamp, the wonderful streaming website that if anyone is listening and needs to buy music, Bandcamp is the best. It's the most supportive to the actual artists. I'm sure many listeners already support Bandcamp and support artists on Bandcamp. But they had this amazing day 2 Fridays ago where the entire proceeds went to the artists. And so the combination of that, and sort of now that we have the time to engage with recorded music in a more profound way, were 2 contributing factors to the release.
That was Buck McDaniel talking to us from his apartment in Harlem, New York. You can find out more information about Buck by visiting his website, buckmcdaniel.com. Okay, so last but not least, I chat with Joe Boyer, Joey Sprinkles, whose solo project saw him visiting almost every Midwest and Eastern city last year. However, as COVID-19 hit, he's decidedly detached. He has a brand new album out, streaming on Spotify. That was my favorite song off of Spelled in Velvet. That was the song While It Happens. I'm sure you guys can relate. Joe, what were you thinking as you were trying to release this album this year while so much stuff was kind of up in the air? I know you've had a good relationship in the past with the music industry and labels in general. What was your approach to releasing this new album?
So I'd finished recording the album around December and was doing the whole process of sending it to friends who run labels and people, and the quote shopping around approach. And it was really bumming me out, just in general, just with such a big event happening and so much pain and sadness going around because of this pandemic. It just felt really trivial to keep pursuing that, like some sort of validation through a label or some sort of representation. It just struck me as pointless right now. And the point of art and music being there for people to relate to and sympathize with, and maybe get them through some hard times, that's the essence of it for me. So like it just felt right to give it away and let people hear it.
I know it seems like kind of a weird question, but do you feel like other people might see it at all like you just gave up, you just put it on the internet so people could listen to it?
I think a lot of it boiled down to pride for me, and that's why it felt unnecessary, because two things. One, the industry has changed to the point where I don't even know if like album cycles and press and all that stuff matters as much anymore. And two, understand why that need of and want of validation was there anymore. Like I said, it just felt right to kind of just let it go, let people, take it how they want to. To me, it seems like it's not as much of an event, of like putting on a record or putting a cassette in or something. It's just most people I know are consuming music through streaming now. It's just how it is. The sequence was trying to be, find a record label, book a tour, etc., plan with them. But then, like we've been talking about, a lot of that sort of process that people have been using now for a while is just becoming, I don't know, it just seems boring to me. And I think people in general, how fast they can consume art and music, it doesn't matter as much to them either. I don't know, I'm just kind of playing it by ear right now. For me, it's all put things into perspective. There's a lot of plans you make in life. You feel like you need to do this or that. And for me, this whole isolation and quarantine has really stripped things down to what matters most to me. And, a big part of that is just playing music. It's been good. It's kind of been reaffirming in that sense. If nothing else, it's helped me kind of peel the layers back and see what's important.
Is there anything else, like in particular, that you've gotten out of this time? I know you're out of work also at the moment. You're a contractor as well. How has your opinion about the album changed in these last couple of weeks?
I really just hope it can help someone out during all this, because I know personally I'm a very anxious person, and this has like put that through the roof. And if it just felt like if somebody could listen to something I created and help them get through it, help them escape it for a minute, then that's it. Like that's the main goal. Like I said, this has all kind of stripped things down for me to their essence, and like that's what I like about music. So that's the only goal, I guess, right now. There's some pretty heavy emotions on the Spelled in Velvet record that I think people could relate to right now. It's like the last track, Devotedly, is kind of about this looming dread or inevitable thing that you might not want to face. You can support these artists in these times by just giving them the time of day, I think. Things are changing rapidly, especially during all this, and the live streams. Check them out as much as you can. Seems like consuming art is a good thing and a good way to support the artists at the moment.
We're going to listen to Devotedly by Joey Sprinkles. It's going to be the last song to take us out tonight. You can stream his new album called Spelled in Velvet on Spotify, as well as a couple of the other popular websites. After this brief musical break, I will be giving you a couple of different resources that you can look at if you are a struggling musician or gig worker in our local economy. Stay tuned. That's the last 5 minutes of Live from Cleveland tonight.
Watch
All right, for the last portion of our show, I'm going to go over a couple of resources that I found online for musicians that have lost supplement during this time. They're state, federal, and private loans. So if any of these things apply to you, please go look online for more information. So Far Sounds has a really great directory. You can find that at www.sofarsounds.com. It's broken up by state as well as federal. There's also information at MailChimp.com/Solidarity Fund application. It is the New Music Solidarity Fund. So if you're like these musicians and you're making new music, please go online. They'll help you out to get some sort of reimbursement for what you're doing. There is also a couple of things online for members of Music Cares, which is music industry workers who have been employed or self-employed for at least 3 years and can provide proof of termination and or work cancellation, as well as a fund through Big Cartel, which is useful for active Big Cartel users. In addition, for those in Cleveland, there is the Cleveland Rocks Support Music Relief Fund. Log onto the internet at clevelandrocksupport.org for more information. And I have several friends online who are telling me that a lot will depend on how musicians have their businesses set up. So independent contractors can now qualify for unemployment, including the additional $600 per week from the federal government if they're set up as an LLC. They can apply for Paycheck Protection Program once the banks start those, which will probably be this Friday. Also, Cuyahoga County has grants available through ECDI. We're going to be posting more information about all of these resources on Live from Cleveland's Facebook page this evening. So please log on to our site, follow us, and friend us. We will be doing more live music broadcasts throughout this entire pandemic through Zoom and other online streaming sites. Thank you so much for listening to the program tonight. I am Rachel H. This has been Live from Cleveland on WRUW-FM 91.1. We're going to go out tonight with another song by local artist Joey Sprinkles. This is the song Swinging on the Floor. Please stream his new album, Spelled in Velvet, on Spotify.
Bless my heart and kiss my soul to bed. Send me off like you would the dead, like a kicked-in head. Size up and tailored, beautiful failure. Loaded pistols, bells and whistles shine, waiting to get a grip. Where's the target? When you're not 6 anymore, rolling in dead leaves, could see fixing a door, pushing at the breeze. Can you shout, heads up when the bottom's out? I'll come down from swinging on the floor. Like you could get behind that, 'cause the rest that I got is gone.